6 months ago, no one outside of Manila had heard of a 19-year-old girl from the Philippines who was ranked 140 inches in the world. The question that no one in mainstream tennis coverage wants to answer is, why did that frighten the world's most dominant player? Because it obviously did, and everything fell apart in front of everyone in Rome. If you simply looked at the Rome scoreboard, you would have missed everything that was important, so let's go back to the beginning of this story. A teenager named Eala entered the Miami Open as a wild card 6 weeks before to the Italian Open. This implies that she wasn't even meant to be a threat. On paper, she was filler. During draw ceremonies, champions hardly pay attention to the type of player seated. However, the tennis community was unprepared for and has yet to properly comprehend what transpired in Miami. Eala defeated 3 Grand Slam champions in straight sets at the same event, not just 1 or 2. Consider the true meaning of it. These athletes have won the US Open, Wimbledon, the French Open, and the Australian Open. And at one of the most important hard-court competitions on the WTA schedule, a 9-year-old rated 140 inches in the world defeated them all. Has that ever been done by a wild card in WTA history? Not once, please. The first was her. Never. After losing the first set 4-0 inches, she overcame Jelena Ostapenko. She returned. She became the first Filipino player in the Open era to defeat a Grand Slam champion at the tour level when she defeated Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion, 6-4, 6-2. Then, after falling behind 4-2 in the second set, she overcame Iga Swiatek in 3 sets. She made history by being the second lowest-ranked woman to go to the Miami semifinals. Overnight, she went from 140 to 75 inches in the world rankings. The first female Filipino to place in the WTA Top 100. Beyond her semifinal match against Jessica Pegula ended in 3 sets beyond midnight, Pegula openly stated that she had to use every bit of her experience to get through it. This is the crucial section for what follows. Miami was also home to Aryna Sabalenka. She was winning, too. She accomplished the Sunshine Double, one of the most difficult feats in women's tennis, by winning Miami and Indian Wells consecutively. In the Miami final, she defeated Coco Gauff. This was Sabalenka's tournament, season, and moment by every available criteria, yet she was not the focus of the scheduling discussion. James Blake, the tournament director, publicly stated that Eala's worldwide following base required her to be on the main court since it would feel like a home game for them. A wild card rated 140 was at the center of the revised center court logistics. Furthermore, Sabalenka's camp did not keep their feelings to themselves. It's not a minor detail. Observing someone else occupy her chair without using it elegantly. And even after Miami ended, that tension persisted. It made its way to Rome, where it exploded. Eala had completely avoided a lower category event in Catalonia by the time clay season started. Rome was neither a warm-up nor an educational opportunity for her. She had set her sights on it. She was in the half of the bracket occupied by Sabalenka. The math was clear, and the draw was set. Before the competition started, both players were hitting at the Foro Italico on consecutive days with the same practice partner, an American prospect called Eva Joik. It was Sabalenka one day and Eala the next. On the same practice court, 2 players who are 24 hours apart are getting ready for the same draw. The tennis community began calculating the results, but as soon as the competition began, the calculations broke down. In less than an hour, Marta Kostyuk defeated Eala 6-0, 6-1 in the opening round. Eala did not receive any break points. One of her return points was won. Social media did what it always does with a number that clean, and she was unable to find rhythm, a foothold, or anything else. It turned it into a verdict. She's vulnerable. She was an anomaly. Miami wasn't a player. It was a moment. The narrative engine began to run, and it did so with vigor. However, this is what that story purposefully overlooked. Days before traveling to Rome, Marta Kostyuk had just won the Madrid Open. She was playing some of the finest clay court tennis of any player on the tour that week, and she was in the prime of her career. She defeated Daria Kasatkina after defeating Eala. Leylah Fernandez came next. Then, in the round of 16, she faced Sabalenka. The world number 1, who had won 9 straight WTA 1000 matches, defeated Kostyuk 6-1, 7-6 in 2 hours and 5 minutes. Before Kostyuk converted her 13th breakpoint, Sabalenka had to erase 12. Sabalenka had to rally after Kostyuk led 5-3 inches in the second set and served for it. She only finished on her 3rd match point after surviving a set point during the tiebreak. The world number 1 was pushed to the brink of a 2-set contest in 62 minutes by the same guy. The scoreboard never displays that context. They don't include that number on the highlight reel. However, Eala wasn't done in Rome. Coco Gauff was her new partner, and she still had the doubles draw. The coupling of Eala Gauff was not a one-time event. These two of the tour's most interesting young players were on the same side of the net, and they started off with a commanding 6-3, 6-1 victory before going on to win the round of 16, another flawless outcome. This paved the way for a quarter-final matchup between the reigning champions, Jasmine Paolini and Sara Errani, two of the world's most seasoned clay court doubles players, playing at home in a stadium designed for Italian tennis aristocracy, with the whole Italian crowd cheering them on. Eala and Gauff had a 4-0 love lead in the first set, leading by 5-3 inches. The veterans retaliated. The second set was reversed. The super tiebreak was intense. In the end, Paolini and Errani prevailed 7-5, 3-6, 10-7 inches in 1 hour and 39 minutes. The adolescent who had been left blank. In a stadium that was always rooting against her, she defeated two great doubles players in singles on day 1 and advanced to a super tiebreak in the quarterfinals on day 8. That was not given the credit it was due. It was not framed the way it should have been. We now reach the area of Rome that most people saw but little anyone fully comprehended. Aryna Sabalenka entered Campo Central for her quarterfinal matchup with Zheng Qinwen on the same day that Eala and Gauff were pushing Paolini and Errani to their limits in doubles. In their 6 prior encounters, Zheng had never defeated Sabalenka. She has lost to Sabalenka in the Australian Open final of 2024. Only a few weeks prior to Rome, she had defeated her 6-0 in the Miami quarterfinals. This appeared to be a formality, a stopover en route to another Sabalenka final. Instead, Zheng gave one of the most comprehensive performances of the season. 82% of her initial service points were won. All 5 of the break points she encountered were saved. Sabalenka created opportunities but failed to convert any of them. 6-4, 6-3 inches in 97 minutes was the final score. Zheng defeated the world number 1 for the first time in his career. And midway through the match, a spectator screamed out, bluntly and directly, "Come on Aryna, play tennis," as Sabalenka was clearly losing control and the audience could sense it. Sabalenka pivoted and yelled back loudly. Without hesitation, the chair umpire gave a code penalty for audible vulgarity. It was very noisy. It was captured on television. In a matter of hours, it was all over the internet. This is the question you must now consider. Why does a player with Sabalenka's track record and mental toughness lose a quarter-final that she should have won easily? Why did the calm crumble in that city, at that very moment? For her, Rome in 2024 was more than just a tennis competition. There was nowhere else for all she had been hauling since Miami to go. The choices made regarding scheduling. The group of people who were previously sympathetic to someone else. The main court logistics were adjusted because of the 9-year-old who had been placed in her side of the draw and whose worldwide following had been publicly acknowledged. That background isn't neutral. It's a pressure cooker. And in front of everyone, the lid popped off. Eala never once addressed any of it in public. She discussed compartmentalization in interviews. About being professional, about living in the present, and about trying to motivate Filipino tennis players. It was evident how differently these two guys dealt with hardship in Rome. One was left with a broken public image, a trophyless quarter-final exit, and a code infraction. The other left with an unexpected doubles run and a reputation that had held up well after a 6-0, 6-1 singles defeat. That is not nothing. Rather, it is everything. Rome, however, was just the start of Sabalenka's disintegration in 2025. She advanced to the final at Roland Garros a few weeks later, but she was defeated in 3 sets by Coco Gauff. The most detrimental news conference of her career ensued. She informed reporters that Sabalenka's blunders were the reason Gauff won, not her outstanding tennis skills. If they had made it to the final instead, she said, another player would have defeated Gauff. She described it as the worst final she had ever participated in. There was an instant and strong worldwide outcry. Holding the award, Gauff gave a sharp pushback during her own press conference. The narrative took off. After that, Sabalenka was in damage control for weeks. Gauff wrote a private apology. She described her own actions as utterly unprofessional on Eurosport. She claimed that she had completely regretted what she had said and that she had let her feelings to control her. She personally contacted Gauff to let her know that the appreciation was genuine and that she truly earned the title. The two athletes then shared videos of themselves laughing and dancing on social media just before Wimbledon, thus ending the chapter. After losing in the semi-finals of Wimbledon, Sabalenka entered her post-loss press conference and said, "Are you guys waiting for something? There won't be a press conference at Roland Garros." Everyone in the room laughed. It landed when she jokingly delivered it. However, the fact that she brought it up on her own, without being asked, in the first line reveals the true depth of that wound. You don't make jokes about things that are still painful. That is 2025's true arc. Rome is at the beginning of the story, not the entire narrative, but the beginning of it. It was on a clay court in front of a wandering crowd that the emotional instability that would characterize her entire season first surfaced, while a teenager she had been made to pay attention to was still fighting for every point in the same complex. Sabalenka was the superior player in Rome in 2025, according to the scoreboard. She was in terms of rankings, outcomes, and trophies won. However, that is the most limited interpretation of what transpired at the Foro Italico that week. The complete picture reveals far more about each of these players and what lies ahead, and it is also messier and more human. The world's greatest player is still Sabalenka. There is no question about that. However, domination has a limit, and it's not always technological. It can be emotional at times. The opponent on the other side of the net is not the one who affects you the most. Sometimes it's a 1 to 9-year-old who subtly stole your Miami scheduling spot, outperformed your title run as a wildcard, and then showed up in your tournament half in Rome without hesitation or regret. As usual, the tennis world moved on swiftly. However, the players do recall. And Eala continued to ascend silently and systematically without sending a single letter of apology to